I lost all my savings because I was listening to FOMO and peer pressure and chasing gains. What's up, y'all? My name is Kenyatta. I wanted to take a second to thank y'all for checking in with me. Okay, so cryptocurrency has been one of the most popular topics I've seen across my social media platforms lately, and that has everything to do with the fact that Bitcoin, which is the granddaddy of all the cryptocurrencies, has recently hit an all-time high of over $40,000 per coin. In this video, I'm going to talk about my failed cryptocurrency experience, and I'm going to talk about the lessons I learned from that whole thing. Also, you should stick around to the end because at the end of the video, I'm going to share with you guys a resource that has helped me along my investing journey, not just with crypto, but investing overall in general. All right, so let's jump in. So everybody and their mama talking about cryptocurrency, talking about Bitcoin, talking about how they got in at $1, got in at $1,000, got in at $5,000. Now they're making all these crazy gains. So this is all cool and fine and dandy, and it's causing everybody who didn't get in early to FOMO their way in. They're feeling like, dang, I'm missing out on all this money. I'm missing out on all these gains. This seems like a good investment. Bitcoin is making millionaires out of people. So everybody's FOMOing into the market. Again, a self-fulfilling prophecy, shooting Bitcoin up even higher. Well, it's certainly true that Bitcoin has made millionaires out of some people. And I am not one of those people. So I also feel like it's important to talk about both sides of investing, both sides of crypto in general. There's this culture surrounding cryptocurrency where people are just making all this money, or they're telling you they're making all this money, and you go on Twitter and it looks like these people are so successful and they're so young and they made the right decision to jump in at the right time, and it makes everybody else kind of feel bad. So I want to talk about both sides of it, and I'm going to talk about how I didn't properly do my research and I ended up losing all of my savings jumping in the market. So back in 2017, Bitcoin had a really big run up. Before then, people didn't really know what Bitcoin was, but it was starting to become more familiar in a household name through pop culture. I remember seeing a movie called Dope sometime back then, and they were talking about Bitcoin in that. So Bitcoin was becoming more familiar, but overall, people didn't exactly know what it was, didn't understand it as a practical currency or even as an investment, but people knew that other people were making tons of money in it, and money talks, you know? So people are wanting to jump in just because they think they're going to make money in it, not because they actually understand what was going on with it or what it was. I personally tend to be very cautious in general, but also with my money. So I wasn't really ready to just throw my money into Bitcoin. I didn't really know anything about it. Plus, at the time when Bitcoin started popping, it was May 2017, and I was a senior in college, so I really didn't have that much money to my name to begin with to be investing in anything, let alone something I didn't understand. I only had about $1,000 in my savings account at that time, so I was just holding on to it in case I ever really needed it. I didn't, like I said, I was a college student. I had my parents behind me. They would give me money if I needed it. I had a little part-time job serving at Olive Garden, but I had this $1,000 sitting around in case I were to ever need it. That was all I had really to my name. My sister had called me at the end of November, beginning of December of 2017, and she was carrying on about how she's making all this money in crypto. So she had bought a couple $100s of Litecoin, and she was watching it run up every day. So she's calling me and she's carrying on. She's like, I'm making all this money, and she's showing me her account, and obviously, like, there's that FOMO thing, right? I didn't get in. I'm not making any money. Everybody else is making money. All right, so let me take a second and give y'all an overview of what Litecoin is. Litecoin is one of the first altcoins created. Altcoins essentially stand for alternatives to Bitcoin. So these different altcoins were created for a multitude of different reasons. So Litecoin technically has some differences from Bitcoin around the things like mining difficulty, block time, and things like that. I'm not going to get into the technicalities of the differences between Litecoin and Bitcoin because that's not the purpose of this video, nor do I really know that much about it. Really, there are three things you actually need to know about Litecoin. So the first thing is Litecoin is much smaller than Bitcoin, with a $10 billion market cap for Litecoin as opposed to Bitcoin's $727 billion market cap. The second thing you need to know is that Litecoin tends to mirror Bitcoin's performance. So when Bitcoin shoots up, Litecoin shoots up. When Bitcoin crashes, Litecoin crashes. And the third thing you need to know, and this thing was the most important to me back in 2017, is that Litecoin is much cheaper than Bitcoin. At the time of filming this video, Litecoin is about $150 per coin, as opposed to Bitcoin's $37,000 per coin, so you can see the humongous difference. So back in 2017, I had this flawed logic where I figured, okay, Litecoin is much cheaper than Bitcoin because it's newer and people haven't really caught on the wave yet. So in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, if I jump on this early, eventually this will reach Bitcoin's level and I would be happy that I got in when it was so cheap because eventually it's going to run up to the same price as Bitcoin. That logic actually doesn't make any sense at all. I didn't know that at the time, but that was my first mistake. So like I was saying, my sister was calling me and carrying on about all this money she's making. She was calling me like almost every day saying, oh, I've made this much money today. I've made this much money today. And this carried on for maybe like 2 weeks until I finally was convinced to actually do some research to figure out if I wanted to buy into this or not. And then my sister was clowning me talking about why you researching, everybody else is making money. And I'm like, okay, right, you're right. So I ended up doing something I almost never do. I gave in to peer pressure. Okay, so I had about $1,000 in savings and I ended up investing all of that into Litecoin. I purchased on December 12th when it was about $359 per coin. So just a few days had passed and I was only up 4% when on December 19th, Litecoin reached its peak at about $375 per coin. So coincidentally, December 19th happens to be the day after my birthday. So happy birthday to me because Litecoin peaked and then it immediately fell off a cliff. By Christmas Day, the price had fallen about 23%. And I didn't sell. I didn't sell because I didn't know much about cryptos, but I did know that they were volatile. And when you're dealing with a known volatile asset, them fluctuating 20% is not really the end of the world. You can look at Bitcoin's recent price chart or even Tesla over the course of 2020 to understand what I mean. Tesla had a 60% drop back around, I think, February, March time of 2020, and then had another 30+% drop August, September time of 2020. And both those times, Tesla has recovered and is going to the moon. So just because something is volatile doesn't necessarily mean you should jump out of it. So I didn't sell and I knew that it was volatile, but I was getting scared. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, I just want this to recover to the break-even point. I'll sell out and forget I was ever done with my money like this. But it never recovered. It just kept dropping. It was dropping like a rock. Every second it was dropping. I'm checking the Coinbase app and I'm just watching the value fall. About a year after I bought, the value had fallen 90%. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, around Christmas, it had dropped about 20%. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, I hope that it recovers, but it never recovered. So after it passed the 30% drop in value, I realized that I had waited too late. And I knew that it was a wrap. But I, at that point, didn't want to sell because I felt I could not shake the feeling in my head of pulling out a couple $100 when I had invested $1,000. Like, that just did not sit right with my spirit. So I didn't sell just because I didn't want to take the loss, and that logic really doesn't make much sense at this point, but that's just where I was at the time. So they say that's basically like catching a falling knife when you're kind of chasing the bottom. A lot of more experienced investors would say that you need to learn how to cut your losses early on some things when they show you that it's going to fall. Sometimes you have to learn to cut your losses early. I didn't do that, and like I said, Litecoin ended up dropping 90%. At some point, I just gave up on it. I just put it out of my mind, put it in the back of my mind. I never really thought about it again for quite a long time. I figured, okay, let me just charge this L to the game because I messed up. It is what it is. That $1,000 is gone. It's whatever. Then I figured, okay, well, since I'm not thinking about it, let me just not sell because it's possible that one day in the distant future, Litecoin can recover and I would be so happy that I never sold. So I charged the L to the game, never sold the investment, and it's still there to this day. I just left it alone. So I hadn't thought about it in quite a long time until recently. Recently, Bitcoin started going crazy. Like I said, it reached an all-time high of over $40,000. And like I mentioned before, Litecoin mirrors Bitcoin. So Litecoin started shooting up as well. So now I'm watching my account again and I'm realizing, hey, it's possible that I might break even in the beginning of 2021. I'm thinking first quarter of 2021, it might actually get back to those original heights and I might just be able to sell and take my money back and let this go. However, I was sadly mistaken because Litecoin hit a peak in January of 2021. And since its peak, it's fallen 30% already. So I should just forget about it again, and maybe in 5 years I'll go back and check on it and see where it's at. So when I made my initial investment at 22 years old, I actually wasn't investing at all. What I was doing was speculating. The difference between speculating and investing is essentially how much risk you're exposed to. So when you're investing, you are aware of how much potential gain you might make compared to the smaller amount of risk you're taking on. So for example, had I done some research and known anything about investing, I would have known that if I had invested my money in an S&P index fund, I probably would have gotten an average return of about 7% over the course of a year, because that is how the S&P has performed historically over decades. So I have all this research to back up the fact that likely in a long-term hold, the S&P 500 is gonna return a certain percentage and have very low risk, as opposed to crypto, which is a way more risky investment. It's a newer investment, so there's not as much history to back up what's going to happen and what things affect its value, as well as its volatility was just through the roof. So it was essentially like me putting it all on black and hoping I hit big. Plus, I had no idea about investing in general, so I didn't even know what a bubble was or what it looked like. Had I known that, I would have probably been able to look at what was going on and determine, hey, this is a little dangerous to get into right now. So the book, The Intelligent Investor, actually introduced me to this topic of speculating versus investing. I actually have a copy of it right here. So I started reading this book during quarantine in 2020, and as soon as I started reading and they talked about the topic of speculating versus investing, it made me immediately realize that my crypto investment way back when was actually nothing but speculation. So this is a really great book. Warren Buffett, master investor, says it's the best book on investing ever written, and he said that it changed his life. That's a really good point. I feel like educating yourself on money or financial literacy in general is a great thing to do. I think everybody should do it, as well as educating yourself on investing when you get ready to make that step in your financial journey. Watching channels like this is a great way to educate yourself on things like that, and I hope you guys keep watching. But also reading books and articles and things like that are also a really great resource to learn more about investing, learn more about money. So I will leave a link to that book down in the description if you guys want to check it out. Okay, so I feel like there are 3 takeaways from everything I mentioned here. One is, don't throw your money into something because of peer pressure or FOMO. 2, do your own research so you can avoid speculating. And 3, sometimes you're gonna take an L. It is what it is. But you can learn from every situation, win or lose. So if you have that mindset, at the very least, it won't be a total loss. You will have learned something, and that's a gain. This video was not intended to be a bash on cryptocurrency investing. At this point, I actually think it could possibly be a decent hedge against inflation, a decent way to diversify your portfolio across all your asset classes. That's another topic for another day. But again, like I said, this wasn't a bash on crypto. This is more so a tough lesson learned on speculating and just jumping in because everybody's talking about the hype. It's really important to do your own research and understand whether this is something that you want to get into. And another great lesson is not to invest money that you can't afford to lose. So if you put all your eggs in this basket and this is money that you actually needed in a short-term period of time, good luck. So yeah, don't invest money into a speculative play that you can't afford to lose. All right, y'all, thanks for watching. If you could do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button, that would be great. All right, I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.